Hey there, I'm Cornelis, and welcome to Your Band is a Business. I enjoy interviewing independent artists. So today I'm going to be speaking with my good friend BaoBou. He is an independent artist that I met on the open mic circuit, and we are going to be talking about his history in music and his new music that he's releasing, the process behind how that came about, and perhaps a bit about the future. So, welcome to the show, Baldwin.
Hello, Cornelis. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And I think a good way to kind of kick off the conversation is to speak about your artist name. So, in your day-to-day life, you are known as Baldwin, but once you don the musician cape, you transform into someone else,
Yeah, it's
kind of.
funny because okay, I have a name in Dutch. It's not super common, but at least it's somewhat known, so people know how to pronounce it usually. Um, Once you get abroad, it's a problem. So in the past, at some point in the US, I decided that I would call myself Bob because that's easier. So I ordered a coffee at Starbucks, and I said they asked for my name. I said, okay, it's Bob, and then 5 minutes later, coffee for Bob. I was like, I'm not Bob, whatever, and I completely missed that was me.
Yeah.
So when I started making music, um, I was actually looking for something that sort of referred to my name, but wasn't literally my name because I was very a bit scared to put it online. What are the reactions going to be? I don't want any of my friends to know about this. It was all very much in the beginning, and so I decided. I was living in Hong Kong at that time, and my name was often abbreviated to Bao or Bao Bao. Bao Bao is sort of a Hong Kong, a funny name that you would give to kids, Teen Teen or Lulu or whatever. So I would be Bao Bao. Bao Bao also is a bit of reference to very full because I have a bit of a belly, so it's a good reference. Um, so I decided for Bao Bao, but then I decided because I'm weird that the two bows had to have different spellings
Right.
because BAO in that's a usual spelling for bow in Hong Kong,
Yeah.
and then BOU, which is a more Dutch way of writing it. But
Yeah.
both in my mind would be bow, and everybody would understand this, and everybody would laugh hysterically. Oh, yeah, that's very funny. Okay, maybe not that last bit, but um, I didn't think about it too much because nobody was going to listen to my music anyway.
Yeah.
And then people did start listening to my music, and I started taking it a bit more seriously. And then at a certain point, I moved to London and I started playing live. And then everybody who needed to introduce me, I decided to keep the same name because why change it? And then everybody who introduced me was like, okay, what is this? Boo boo, bow bow boo, bow boo. I don't
Right,
know how to
right, right,
pronounce
right.
this.
Yeah, yeah,
So now I'm stuck with it. And I have half and half in mind that at some point in my life, I will change to something more pronounceable.
right.
Um, as you introduced me, I just realized that as a kid, I also had a pseudonym, a moniker, because I was writing some teenage poetry. And we had a school newspaper, and I wanted to have my stuff published in the school newspaper,
Yeah.
but again, not under my own name. So I called myself Anders D. Anders is sort of a Swedish Danish name, and I don't know why. Oh, I know why Anders, because Anders is also the Dutch word, as you know, for different.
Yeah.
The D makes no sense at all, but that was at that time my name. So maybe at some point I will dump all the BaoBou music stuff and I will switch to being Anders D. I don't know. For
Okay.
now, I'm stuck with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to having a quote unquote difficult name is that initial hurdle, but for me, I think it's worth, I don't know, personally, I think it's worth sticking with because eventually the people that are your fans will go around correcting other people. That's my thought
Yes,
anyway. But even
yes,
even even somebody like David Bowie, like some people David Bowie, and I'm still not. I still don't know what it is, and I'm pretty sure I've watched interviews with him where where they ask him, so how do you pronounce it? And he says it, and it goes in one ear and out the, and I've forgotten already, and
yeah.
I'm still not 100% sure what it is.
Yeah, and
Um,
obviously there's bands with weird or difficult names that they stuck because it if the music is good enough, then yeah,
yeah,
and yeah, I like what you say that people will start correcting each other, and yeah, it
yeah,
will be part of the
or it will be a discussion point. I mean, I always think about the SEO as well, so I'm always thinking about, okay, what will people type in, and
yeah.
even if they type my name wrong, they should still find me if they add the Gerard part to it. So,
Yeah, so I'm not well known enough that Google knows. Okay, this is the guy. So
hmm,
if you're looking for music, then there is some baobab orchestra. A baobab is one of those big African trees,
yeah,
and there's some other stuff that you would see if you don't type it exactly correct, right? And then that's probably what you would end up first.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not ideal yet. I need a couple thousand more followers and a couple million more plays, and then then it will probably be okay.
Yeah, I think I don't know. So because I think I made a video about this at some point where there's something called the Google Knowledge Panel. When you've built up enough content online that Google will basically put all the puzzle pieces together. So I recently
Yes,
Googled myself just to see what the latest stats was, and it listed me as a personality. So
nice,
so I don't know if that is
nice.
like
Okay,
a recent thing or whatever, but definitely, when you Google me, it shows, it knows that I'm a musician. There's like this little tab for my songs, and it obviously picked up from all the social media and from the Spotify. It's like, okay, this is a person. It all points towards the
yes,
same person. So just from a practical point of view, I understand, like, there's gonna be you can't, that can't be the only consideration, but it is a consideration. It is something practical. I remember chatting with somebody, and they wanted to name their band Pear, like the fruit pear. And it's like, well, you can, but it's gonna be one of these extra little things that isn't helping you. And
yeah,
like I said, it doesn't mean you have to be, oh, it has to be all about what's the most SEO friendly name. But at the same time, like, do you really need to like shoot extra bullets into your feet? It's
yeah.
hard enough. So it's one of these considerations. But yeah, I find it, with that same mindset, and I've thought about how um a lot of bands are a combination of two words, but even like, and there are a lot of words in a lot of languages, but even two words is, it's almost like a password. The
I
more
have a
common,
special love for extravagant band names, stuff like Ben Folds Five, who
okay,
they're not with five at all, right? Or
right, right, right,
Cage the Elephant. What the hell does it mean? It
yeah,
already draws my attention.
yeah. I think yeah, and like I said, like on a practical note, like a password. If you've got three words, that's already a lot of different combinations,
Yeah,
even if it's in one language, let alone going into other languages. Because there's that as well. Some people, they take uh take words from other languages because it sounds more exotic and
yeah,
interesting, stuff like that.
yeah.
So the name BaoBou originated when you were in Hong Kong. When did you first start making music? Was it there, or was it before?
It was sort of my midlife crisis. This is how I like to say it. I played piano as a kid. I always wanted to play violin, so at certain points, I convinced my parents that I should play the violin. But they said, okay, but you first have to have at least 3 years of piano lessons, and
Okay.
before this, you also have to play the recorder. to at least get some musical knowledge and etc. So okay, I did the recorder and then I did piano and then when I was about 10 or 11, I said, okay, now can I finally play violin?
Wow.
And they said, yeah, yeah, sure. And I first got one of these smaller ones. You get a 3/4 size, and then I got a full size. And by then, I was a teenager, and I started listening to pop music because I grew up with classical music. But going to middle school, you started listening. I started listening to pop music, to the Police, on the poster that's behind you.
Yeah.
And I started first. I tried to convince my violin teacher to give me some pop music to play. He had some bluegrass fiddle, which okay didn't fully convince me. And then a friend of mine, a bit older than me, he always had this a bad electric guitar on the wall, which it was completely ruined, and it just had a couple of pieces of aluminum wire instead of proper guitar strings. So it didn't work. And at some point he wanted to get rid of it, and I got it
Mm.
and I fixed it, put strings on it, tried to repair it as well as I could. I hooked it up. I didn't have a guitar amp, so I hooked it up to the pickup entrance for our stereo.
Yeah. Yeah.
I created a special cable for this. These kind of things don't exist. And I was able to make some noise, and that was so much more fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then basically for about 30 years, I forgot all about it. When I went to study, I didn't have access to any kind of musical instruments. I even played live a bit in some pub in Leiden, and I did some. I played piano at some functions, but okay. Then 30 years, basically no music.
But you stopped piano then at that point?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Which
sorry,
if I
and
look back, it's such.
violin as well.
Yeah, I haven't touched the violin in even more years,
Yeah. Yeah.
probably since I was 15 or so. Yeah, yeah, it's a shame. And then I was watching some video of Andertons, the famous guitar and music store in Guildford in England, and they had this amazing video about looper pedals. And they showed a looper pedal and a simple guitar, and I thought, oh, okay, finally, then you can play some chords, and then you can also improvise and play your own melodies. Because
Yeah.
as a kid, I tried to do this. If you play piano and violin, you can write your own music,
Yeah.
but then you have to find somebody to play either of those. And I didn't have any friends that did these kind of things.
Mm.
So with the looper pedal, I thought, okay, this is filling the void that I I had as a kid and something that I really, really wanted.
Mm.
So I got a looper pedal, I got a guitar, and I started playing, and I had so much fun. Um, and then I think I had decided, okay, I will join a band because obviously, if you have a guitar, then everybody wants to have you in your band. And then
Yeah.
it turns out that actually it's the other way around. Everybody has a guitar, everybody
Yeah.
wants to be in a band. They will only take you in your band if you're really, really good, and obviously I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I found a band that needed a bass player. So I thought, okay, I will get a bass and start playing the bass. And okay, that also didn't work out. But by then, at least I had two instruments,
Yeah.
and I started using them both on the looper pedal. Um, and then I wanted to have a bit more freedom, so I started thinking about one of those looper pedals with five different inputs. Um, and somebody said, why don't you take a DAW, digital audio workstation, something like Ableton, because then you have much more freedom.
Mm. Mm.
I
Mm.
I think I tried another one first, maybe something like Pro Tools, and I had no idea what to do. And then I got a free license for Ableton, and suddenly it clicked in my brain. I sort of understood how it was supposed to work.
Yeah.
I got a MIDI keyboard, still have it. And I started adding more instruments, and at some point even the microphone. And then, that I made first little bits of maybe 10 or 20 seconds, and
Mm.
then maybe a minute, and then at a certain point it started to be more like an instrumental song. But okay, I still didn't take it super serious. And it was actually only when I got to London, when in 2021, when I I reached a new level, and the silly reason is I had added a Roland Octapad, which is a simple percussion, a digital percussion thing.
Mm.
Octo because it has 8 pads, and you can load something like 100 different sets, which I tried to use in my songs, but I realized that I had no idea how drums worked, and at some point I just got rid of it. Um, so when I was in London, I was sitting waiting for my coffee somewhere, and they always had cool music there. And at that moment, I heard a drum solo, and I realized I have no idea what's going on in this drum solo.
Mm.
If you play me a guitar solo, I can sort of deconstruct it, and I know, okay, it's
Right.
roughly this, and then it goes there, and now I expect it to go, okay, yeah, yeah, okay, or piano, or I can get that, but with these drums, I had no idea what he was doing, and so I googled Bethel Green drum school, and it turned out that that was actually a drum school 5 minutes from my house.
Oh, wow.
I got a first lesson. I loved it. It was amazing. And that was also a new insight because to me, probably because I came from classical music. In classical music, the guy on the drums is just making some noise. Okay, in uh, most of the concerts won't even have a role. So
Mm.
you know, you don't really take these kind of people serious. So in my mind, a drummer, yeah, there has to be somebody in the back of the stage who is making some noise and sort of indicating the speed. And I, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And then as I got these drum lessons, I started to get it, and I started to understand how it drives the music and how it changes the music. And that gave me also new inspiration, and I started writing more songs with I started writing lyrics. I started trying to sing, which I'm still terrible at. But and then at some point, I had some songs, and I started showing them to people a bit more confidently. And people started reacting somewhat positively. And somebody said, "Why don't you publish some kind of an EP?"
Yeah.
And I thought, "No, I'm still terrible. Of course, I shouldn't do that." And I heard this 2 or 3 times, and then I started to get into this idea. Yeah, maybe that is cool.
Mm.
Maybe
Hmm.
that's a nice idea.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, how long was it between that and actually releasing something?
That took me about 3 months because by then I had, let's say, 6 or 7 songs that were candidates. I decided at some point to just take the most recent four and try to finish them and publish them, and so that went relatively fast.
And you did that all yourself?
Yeah, yeah, everything was self-recorded. I also didn't understand about mastering at all, so I'm not even sure what I did to even get it mastered. Maybe I used some free tool somewhere. Yeah,
Mm.
so it's if I hear the sound quality, it's okay. It's obviously it's not great,
Yeah.
but
Uh,
it was nice to just stumble into it and to
Okay. Well,
to have a start.
that's good that you did that because so many people have the idea of doing it, but then it just never happens. So the fact
And
that
never do it. Yes, yes.
um,
I on social media sometimes you see people announcing I will have my first single and it will be out in 3 months. And I recognize the excitement because yes, I was there and I was also very scared to do it. How will people react? Well, they didn't react much at all, but also I I went ahead and I did the whole thing for 4 songs
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, I I know of people, well, many people I know of like there's one particular example that I know of where it was a band of I don't know how many people were in the band, like 5 or 6 people. It was more than four. It was a bigger band, and it took them like I want to say a year, maybe longer, they were rehearsing, writing songs, and then they eventually recorded a whole album. So like well done from that point of view. They eventually got it together after like a long time. But then they'd collectively put all their life energy into this one moment. And it didn't like, and everyone came to, there was a big
Yeah.
launch gig, and a lot of people, because they had a lot of friends, they were busy in the music industry for a while, so they had lots of fans from previous projects. So that was a fully sold out gig, maybe 75 people or something like that. And then it died because they had all lived up to this one moment. And I don't know if I think it was already starting to fall apart towards the end. So
Yeah.
this was kind of a way for them to like a lot of them were like, okay, I'll just stick with it till it gets over the finish line, which it did, and maybe some of them were hoping that it would get rave reviews and everything, and some, but other people had already checked out. But anyway, the point was is that they broke up like within like 2 weeks later, and like
Yeah.
I'm not to say that there's anything. It's not that that was unsuccessful because they put out an album, and a lot of people don't do that either. But yeah, there's something to be said for the release early, release often
Yeah.
point of
Yeah. Yeah.
view, or minimal viable product, or however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's maybe for some people they can feel like um they know themselves enough to say that, okay, if I'm going to work towards something over the course of 2 or 3 months, which is what you did. But then other people, sometimes you chat to them and they've got ideas, but then they're going to be procrastinating, and they're going to come up with excuses, and like nobody's making you if you don't have to put out music if you don't want to. Like I'm not judging people if they don't do it, but for your own self, I think either have a low, how to say it, a small goal to work towards, or if you have a bigger and bigger goal, then just know yourself enough that you can think to yourself, right, if I'm gonna be more ambitious, then it has to be something that I'm gonna plan to stick with. So, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I definitely see both sides of the argument because it also means that I have now stuff on Spotify, which objectively it isn't very well recorded. I'm
yeah.
still proud of what the songs are, definitely from where I was at that moment in in my journey. Um, but and you also have a somewhat different approach to it. I I definitely have a touch of ADHD. I definitely have a touch of not being very realistic and thinking that something is great when it definitely isn't. So I I really respect people who can and want to work for a very long time on whatever they're doing, whether it's a painting or whether it's a book or whether it's an email or whether it's a song or an EP or an album. I totally respect that. I usually think that I'm done when I only maybe at 80%. And then you and I know the 80-20 rule that the last 20% takes 80% of the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I've found over the years, I found some ways to deal with this. Because when I have a first draft, I want to show to the whole world and show, look, it's done. It's here. It's a fantastic new song, and it's the best song I've ever written. And then the
Hmm.
next morning you wake up and you think, no, it's terrible. Um, so what I do to combat this is I will first publish it on an amateur forum that I really like, Looperman, where there are people who know me and they know what kind of things I do. So they know if it's a bit rough around the edges, that's fine. They know that's how it is. And also, all of these people are, or almost all of these people are amateurs. There's also some semi-pros,
Hmm.
but they respect that. Okay, yeah, in what you're doing, this is okay. It's better, or it's more interesting, or it's different from what you did last week.
Yeah.
And then I will work on it a bit more, and then I will make a video for YouTube. Um, and then I will publish it there, and then maybe I will get some reactions or not, or I will publish it on also put it on Reddit or whatever to get some views, and then I will let it simmer. And it also means that I don't worry too much about whether it's a great or a very mediocre song. But I I let it simmer so I can get some perspective.
Hmm.
And then at some point I think, okay, how many songs have I written over the past, or whatever the time is? And then I think, okay, I have these 25 songs. Half of them are terrible. Okay, I'm not even going to think about them. But the other ones, which ones do I want to finish a bit more? Which ones do I want
Hmm.
to give an extra layer? Maybe re-record the vocals, maybe re-record the drums, whatever it is. There's always, even I can hear that there's something missing,
Yeah.
and then I can work on those songs. And for the last album, you helped me on this, and I can get my own different perspective. I can get somebody else's perspective, and get a bit further, and then they go to Spotify. And for now, that's sort of the end of the whole journey.
Yeah. Does playing the song live appear anywhere in this process?
Sometimes it does. There's some songs that um, so learning to play live has helped me enormously in writing songs, because the songs that I published on the first EP, three of those I've never played live, and there's probably no way to play them live. I really recorded them in the studio, and there were certain sounds and certain ideas that it really wouldn't work. I still think that there's one that I have played live, and it sort of works.
Hmm.
Um, when I started playing live on open mics, and when I met you, it started changing the way how I write my music, because I I realized that I will go to an open mic with one guitar or one piano, and use that particular instrument. So I have to fit all the music in one voice. Um, and later on, I try to change back again and say, because if you do everything on the piano, then it also sort of limits what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I try to expand and use samples and use more synthy sounds and use different sounds, or start from the bass guitar or whatever, and try to have things that have again more layers. And now I'm back into a phase where actually no, I want to reduce it and keep it as simple as possible. Um, I even have I have two ideas. One I'm already working on, and one that's sort of in the back of my mind. I'm trying to make a number of recordings, which I call unplugged, and the idea is to really trim it down to just a piano and maybe the drum sounds in the piano and vocals, or guitar and vocals, just as simple as possible. Um, and another idea is, but I haven't started working on that, is to have 12 punk-like songs with just an angry guitar and angry vocals and angry lyrics and 2 minute songs, and just in and out, and leave a
Okay.
beautiful corpse,
Sounds
roughly.
good.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you created this nice environment for yourself to allow yourself to start iterating through the process. I think uh, there's always advantages to starting when you're young, but I think something that uh, that is one of those advantages that you can take forward no matter what stage you are in is that um, kind of naivety in a way that you don't know really what's going on and you're super proud of anything that is recorded. And that you don't try and compare yourself to super pro recordings. And I think that is one of the advantages if you do start young, then you just well, I recorded this vocal and it's like terrible, but you're just super proud, and that is something that's hard to take forward because as you grow up, then you have mature tastes and you can hear the nuanced differences between things. And then it's
I don't.
all right.
I don't have those tastes. I'm not
Okay.
very mature. I'm still a 12-year-old kid
Okay. Well,
trying to do as much as I can.
that's good. I mean, because I found a CDR of mine recently. So CD Children is like a physical disc that has music on it. So I haven't listened to it yet, but I think I actually found the WAV file somewhere else. So if I cannot find my CD USB thing, which is somewhere, I don't know, then I can listen to the WAV files, which I still haven't done. I should do that at some point. Um, but uh, yeah, that yeah, but there's world famous artists that put out an EP or a first album that has been buried in history now, and they don't upload it to Spotify. And sometimes somebody has put it up on YouTube. You know, the hardcore fans that want to hear the first album or whatever. So it's
For the police, I used to have a bootleg. It must have been a CD. Yeah, it was not vinyl. Bootleg CD, which they called Strontium 90, because I think
okay.
that was the when they still played with what's his name, Padovano. Yeah, before they really became the police.
Yeah, yeah,
It was out, and as a fan, I had to have it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah. So I think but it sounds like you've like created that. Um, Situation for yourself where you have the forum where you can get some feedback. You've got friends that you can get some feedback from. You can iterate through the different versions of your songs until you feel that they're ready and you don't because a lot of people I mean it's a classic thing and it's not just music, it's in a lot of things. It's like this perfectionism, like it has to be like perfect right from the start, like
Yeah,
you know, it's you know, everybody struggles with that. I don't know. There's no way around it. So the only way is through it to like put things out, and it's not just partially it's that you can iterate yourself and learn to do things better, but also it's that you can then uh, bring it's easier to bring other people on board because you know, in my case, I don't do any. I mean, I've done some home recording, and I probably will do more in the future, and I'll do some home production in the future. I do want to get better at that, but at the moment, all my music is recorded by like a like a professional
yeah,
guy, and so all those decisions are now out of my hands. But saying that, like, I had to pull myself up by my own bootstraps as well because in the beginning it wasn't the case. Nobody heard me at an open mic and I was like, that guy's got it. I want to bring him to my, you know, it didn't work like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I was I was playing open mic nights and then I started doing like these little home recordings with like a DAW and like a programmed drum and I played the guitar myself and then I low put it down a couple of octaves so it sounded like a bass and I did these like home recordings and that allowed me to like recruit somebody to play drums for me in a live situation and then I had a well if you have a drummer and a guitar player you're a band already and but
yeah.
then that allowed me to get a bassist on board, and then I could then, well, had already been to a studio where I was able to, I, um, it was me and him and the recording engineer because that recording engineer happened to be a really good multi-instrumentalist, so he could play drums and bass as well. So we were able to do a whole song together, which is well, we did a couple of songs actually. And again, like this is the thing, right? So I released, I think, 4 or 5 songs that I ended up throwing down the memory hole and they don't exist. So even what I just said, I'm
Yeah,
that
yeah,
forget
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But that happened, and like for 5 or 6 songs until the art of not giving a, which is like okay, that is I'm when that's 100% Cornelis Jarrett song that works, and I like the recording. But yeah, doing those early recordings allow me to get in the other musicians and then gigs and then through all my networking and just hanging out with musicians over the years, what happened is that the guy that now records and produces me, he one day sent me an email say, oh, do you have anything that you want me to mix? And this was during the COVID times, and I said, well, actually I've been working on this stuff at home, do you want to mix it? So the point of the story is that whether you end up in a place perhaps where it's all done by professionals and you're turning up and recording the vote, or you end up in a place where you're doing it all at home. In the beginning, there's still a lot of similar steps that have to be taken, which is like, as I said, like
yeah,
trying to do as much as you can yourself. Um, and so it sounds like that you're in a good place, that you've created this space for yourself. You've got the forums, you've got real life people, you've got open mic nights. There's like different places that you can go to.
yeah.
But yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
people don't do that, and they have this, it's gonna be amazing. It's like, well, maybe hopefully one day it will be, but you have to like take a little step in the direction.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure whether I'm doing everything in the right order, but that's the benefit of not being very mature and still having the childlike optimism, enthusiasm, where I go like I even in my most enthusiastic moments, I know it's not going to be great, and I'm not going to be playing Wembley next year. That's fine, but I also now, after let's say about 3 years of this process and 2 years of playing live, I know that it's going to be a little bit better every time.
Hmm.
And I just, you were there, I played again in the Star and Shoreditch. I've done this 3 times now. I did it in 23, 24, 25. If I compare the first time I played there, when I really wasn't ready to do this,
Hmm.
and if I compare it to 2 years later, how I play there, and I think, yeah, but I've learned some stuff,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
and there's still so much more to learn. But if I can still learn at age 56, then I can just keep having fun and
Hmm.
moving
Hmm.
forward, and yeah,
Yeah, I think what you said earlier about I'm that you were not sure that you were doing things in the right order. That's something that I always have I guess, a paranoia about. But then there's also the understanding that it's impossible to in advance strategize every single little step. You,
yeah,
you might you might be able to have like a broad idea, but then there's the reality of actually trying to do it, and then obstacles pop up, and you didn't even realize that would be obstacles. So again, it's one of those what is it? The obstacle is the way, or what, however we want to call it. Like if you like start moving towards a direction, then the things that you need to learn will appear in the order that you need to solve them.
yeah.
And
I,
maybe.
I it's something that really works for me. It's also how in my day job how I try to manage. I take a decision first, and then I try to make the decision the right thing.
Mm,
Whereas other people, they want to first have all the information, and then they maybe will take a decision. Okay, and you need both of these people, especially if you're in a large organization or a large project. You need these two voices, and you need somebody. I need somebody to slow me down. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait, 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 wait. We don't have all the information. Oh, okay. And they need me to say, wait, okay, that's fine. You keep thinking about it. However, I need to take a decision by 5 o'clock tonight
Yeah.
because
Yeah. And I think so what you could then say, and again that's in music and work, whatever, is that you could potentially have outside help. So in music that would be like the manager, and the manager says, okay, well actually first do some of this and second do some of that. And or if you don't have a manager, then you go on YouTube and you find gurus that have advice to give. And that is all very useful and good. But then there's always uh, the the individual circumstance that you are in is always going. It's always you're never going to be able to avoid inefficiency. There's no ultimate like I did every single step and
uh,
you know
uh,
but that's
uh,
something I deal with. I'm like, oh, so I'm having a situation right now where um, I'm promoting a song that I did not real think would have as much popular appeal as my other songs.
passion is
So
aggression.
yeah, and it's the
It's a
last
really
song.
good song. Yeah,
Thank you. But it's the last song out of the six that I'm releasing. The first one I released in 2023. So and
yeah,
this one and again, there's so many variables because it could be just that this song is appealing to more people within the circle that I'm operating in. But then what started happening is that there's a site called Submit Hub, if anybody
yeah,
knows that,
yeah,
where you
yeah.
can. So I put it up for review on Submit Hub, and it was getting, on average, more better reviews than the other ones. And then I've recently been submitting it to playlists. And whereas before none of my songs were getting accepted, now a whole bunch of them are accepting on playlists. So now on the one hand, I'm happy, but on the other hand, I'm like, oh, I should have released this a year ago. This should have
Yeah,
been the first single, and that, and I get like paranoid in that way. But I have to like calm myself down in a way because you can drive
yeah,
yourself completely crazy with
yeah,
that thought process. And it's
yeah.
like, well, okay, what like there could be a whole bunch of other circumstances because right now, for example, I'm noticing that in the broader music culture, there seems to be like the tastemakers have decided that rock is back now, apparently.
Right.
There's an artist called Youngblood who recently put out this 7 or 8 minute like rock song, which is a they're like, oh, it's influenced by classic rock, and I'm like, well, no, because you took this from Baba O'Reilly and you took this from Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's pastiche more than, well, anyway, I don't want to have that argument, but basically, uh, like you see these newspaper articles saying, oh, Youngblood has decided to make rock cool again, and so like it
Sure.
could be.
So maybe you're now just at the right moment and doing the right thing.
Exactly. Yeah. It
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
that there's like
You,
headwinds, but like
you
there's always
never
going to be
know.
yeah, there's a billion different variables, and like I said, you can drive yourself crazy trying to optimize every single thing and plan ahead and like, but it's not like that. It's it's like sailing a ship, and you have a destination in mind, and the wind's going to blow a little bit this way, it's going to blow a little bit that way, and ships don't go in a straight line, right? They have to like zigzag towards their target, and that's what we have to do, I think.
That's true, and it's also that if you see interviews with famous artists, they all have this one song which they, didn't get a big hit, but they feel that it's the best song they've ever written,
Mm.
and vice versa, that the song that suddenly became famous. Yeah, I don't know why this is the one that hit, but it did. So
Mm.
that's fine. I wanted to go back a couple steps to something that you touched upon. Um, you were talking, for instance, about taking information from YouTube, and there's many kind of sources, right?
Yeah.
Um, I feel somewhat strongly about this because these sources can be helpful for the things that you know that you don't know, but the things that you don't
Right,
know,
right, 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 right.
they will never scratch that itch. And I've had a couple of teachers. I was talking about the drumming lessons. I've had several drum teachers one amazing guy who really knew how to inspire me. He would really
Mm.
give me rhythms that really worked for me. That I would write a song around a rhythm that he gave me, or vice versa. I would take a song and I would ask him, "How do you drum to this?" And then this was worked really well. And I worked for some time with a producer who challenged me, right? Who said, "Okay, yeah, that's very nice, but." I want you to re-record the whole song, but do it this way. Or next week I want to have a rap song. Rap? I can't rap. And that was really interesting to work
Mm.
in that way with somebody who has knowledge that you clearly don't have and can help you change the things that you don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's well, I mean, that's a challenging thing to kind of um to be able to bring into your life. Like you said, like you find a teacher that can then po point out your blind spots and open you up to things. But then again, like you have to find the right teacher that does that. And
One
sometimes,
hundred percent. Because I also had some guys that it really didn't work for me. It didn't inspire me. And then okay, then you say goodbye after some time. But if you find the right teacher, also my singing teacher was amazing and really inspired me. So any people that they want to get ahead and cross a certain barrier where they think, okay, there's this hurdle that I feel there is, but I'm not sure how to get there. Think about getting a teacher
yeah, 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 yeah.
because and and I would love to also have some teachers about mastering and about mixing and about I've had some limited engineering lessons, which it's clearly not enough. But all of this, I really feel that it helps. Marketing, etc. I still have no idea about the marketing aspects of music. It's also the thing that interests me least. I know it's something that is closer to your heart, and you're really good at it. It's
Yeah.
something that I don't fully understand. I'm I'm still I said I have some ADHD, but I'm also autistic enough to believe that if it's good enough, then it will hit. Which it's not necessarily a thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you if you paint the most beautiful painting in the world and you hide it in your basement, nobody's going to ever see it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I have this weird mixed relationship with marketing because on the one hand, it's my day job, as it were. Even I'm on the digital technical side of things, but I do have a big interest in it. And even like when I was working in the corporate environment, a lot of times I was working in either smaller departments or in startups. So I would be sitting right next to the social media person and the brand person, and I would be involved in these, I've been away to like weekend workshops where we would discuss the brand values and all that kind of stuff. Just not that I'm the expert on it, but they just want different voices in the room, right? And just, okay, somebody else that comes from outside has maybe an idea. So there are aspects of it that interest me. Um, but it's one of those things like I forget to post on social media and I don't miss it at all. Which
No.
is like, and I always say this, I joke about it. I say it shows that I'm psychologically reasonably healthy. But then as a musician, it's like, you really should be. So it's one of those things
Yeah.
where I have to the things that interest me about it, and I guess what I try to like focus on is the storytelling aspect of it, and that goes back, before I was making music, where I remember being fascinated by. I would, because I like a lot of people, I would read like the Lord of the Rings and Dune and all this kind of stuff, and I loved it. But then I became interested in why I liked it, and then and that made me interested. Oh, so there's like these universal stories that people seem to resonate with across many cultures and across thousands of years. You know, these what there's a classic book called Hero with a Thousand Faces, which analyzes all these myths and stuff like that. And so that's kind of what keeps me interested. And then later, when I became a songwriter, um, well, over like my songwriting changed, but eventually I became kind of a story-driven songwriter. So that's what kind of keeps me interested. And then, yeah, because my day job is involved in that kind of thing, I have this in there's kind of there's whatever I learn in one, I apply to the other and vice versa.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I get that benefit from it, but definitely 100%. I wish I could spend that time just only doing the music. But like you just said, if you make something nice and nobody ever hears it, then there's no point. So
I'm also fully convinced that the music world is now at a stage that yes, if you're Taylor Swift, you can make billions, but even if you are, let's say, in the top 1,000 of most popular bands or musicians today, it's hard to make a living. And almost all of these people, they work in studios or they teach or they are barista or they have some way to supplement their income.
yeah, yeah,
So, on the other hand, there's also a gazillion billion people like us who have a day job and a hobby. And um, I think in music, it may be the more sustainable way to have that hobby and to. I can't even imagine the stress trying to feed your family or even try to feed yourself, right?
yeah, yeah.
As a struggling artist today in London, or not even struggling, even if you're a successful artist in a city like London, how are you going to pay a thousand, £1,500 of rent?
Yeah, yeah.
It's silly.
Sometimes you see um like articles or whatever. I think um from what from what I've seen, it's a bit hidden, and I don't know if that's personal shame from the musicians or if it's that the industry is kind of trying to keep it a secret. But basically, sometimes it will come out. You'll hear about some band that just maybe didn't headline Glastonbury, but were, not the
Yeah,
bottom, but
yeah,
were like
exactly.
fairly
If you do
middle or
Glastonbury, you're
high.
doing fine, right? And
Yeah.
then,
And then you're like, oh no, we also work at the supermarket. And you're like, wow. And there's nothing wrong with working at the supermarket, but it's like you just said, like maybe if you played at the opening, then you can say, okay, maybe they have their day jobs or their side jobs. But then you would normally think, oh, if you're getting up to the middle or top of a festival bill, then maybe you would be making a living. But even those people are not.
yeah,
And like I said, like I don't know, I think maybe a um part of it is some kind of shame aspect to it. Maybe that people feel like, oh, well, everybody thinks that because I'm in a popular band, I should be making money. And so they feel like they can't reveal that. But partially, I wonder if it's, like I said, the music industry is like trying to, maybe not overtly, but like helps, helps perpetuate the shame feeling so that they don't have to tell their bands, keep it
or
on
at
the
least to
down low.
perpetuate the myth of the super famous and a millionaire artist that can do anything they want and
Yeah, yeah,
buys
yeah, yeah.
Rolls Royces and yeah, yep.
So, but yeah, I mean, this channel's called Your Band is a Business, but I often say it's a loss-making business.
Yes, yes. I
Like,
think for most people it will be loss
yeah,
making, and
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, people like it's one of the like with YouTube channel names, it popped into my head and it's like, oh, that sounds nice. Why not?
It's a
So
very good name, and it's a seriously, it gave me a start to think about it. So yes, it should be a business, and probably if you get more serious about it, then you should approach it as a business. Whether it's a struggling business or a completely successful business, it doesn't really matter. But you should probably approach it that way.
yeah. And the way that
My
I
my
think,
s- Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say my personal struggle is that I really do not like the the business part of it, and I don't like finishing stuff. I like creating stuff.
Hmm, hmm.
This is back to my ADHD character.
Yeah.
I would much rather have a year where I write 365 songs but publish none than one where I basically don't write anything but then record one perfect song.
Hmm.
That would still okay. That's probably not fully true, right? I would be incredibly proud of having a perfect song, but if I don't write anything or don't have any ideas for a couple months, which is something that happens occasionally, right?
Yeah.
Then I start feeling antsy, and it's I I feel something is missing. Something's wrong with me. How come there's no ideas? And I just want to sit down at the piano or with a guitar and start doing something to have some kind of idea. And
Hmm.
then when there are ideas and I have half a song, then well, okay, I'm back. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm mentally healthy again.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think I guess for me, I'm at a stage where I am so desperate to have people hear what I've made that I'm kind of willing to set that aside for now. But I do miss that, and I wish I was spending more time actually writing new things. But um, I should be able to. Well, right now I should be able to carve out some space to do that.
If you
Um,
say hear what I've made, are you talking about playing it live or are you talking about having it on the various streaming options or maybe even Bandcamp, vinyl, CD, whatever? Are you talking about playing it live in front of an audience or having
uh,
it somewhere in the music sphere?
live is usually a good place to start. Yeah, that's like 50% of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, so you released when did you release your first EP?
So the first EP, I think finally it was published in 2023. I did most of the work in 2022. In 2023, it came out on my birthday, 2023, 4th of January. And then that was an EP with 4 songs. And between the time that I decided, okay, this will be the EP, and the moment it came out, I already had 5 or 6 new songs. And then as soon as it was out, I think I wrote 8 more. And then I started thinking, okay, now I want to have a full album. And it needs to be, I don't know, something like 12 songs. You're a single person. I don't know why. I'm old fashioned. I like the idea of an album. I also like
Yeah,
the idea of singles,
yeah.
but I think in albums. Um, so I started working on that. That album had finally 12 songs. Came out in July July 23. Then in I think roughly February, no, not roughly, February 24, I brought out another EP. You can see there that's Artesian Grove. It has 4 songs which are quite different from everything else that I've produced. And funnily enough, at this time, they're actually also doing the best, even though I've brought out another album and I've been promoting that album. The songs of Artesian Grove are actually the ones that are doing best.
Okay.
So after Artesian Grove, I sort of had a bit of a music burnout dip, and I didn't write many songs. Occasionally, one that I wasn't super happy about. And then this year, or last year, the 24, I went to a concert. I went to a concert of Jacob Collier. Jacob Collier is this amazing multi instrumentalist. People are a bit divided about him because His songwriting is not necessarily the best, but
Mm,
he does amazing interpretations of famous covers, and his musicality is just off the scale. And the way he plays piano, I mean, come on, I would need at least 20 more fingers to be able to do that, and
mm,
then also two more brains. And then he plays amazing guitar and pretty good bass and drums, and it's just fantastic. And funnily enough, when I saw that concert, I mostly thought, okay, that's so good. I can never reach that. And that
mm,
was sort of a liberating thought.
mm,
And at the same time was inspiring. And I was full of music and full of ideas. And after that, I wrote again something like 10 songs in a relatively short time. And then I brought out the fourth thing, so a second album. So if you look there, there's Infinite Freedom was the first one.
mm.
I don't exactly remember why I chose the name, but it sort of works for what it was a liberating thing at that moment. It was the first EP. The second one is called Step by Step, and it was on purpose to take that name as the line from one of the songs, and it was every time a little step. Artesian Grove is my address, and I felt that it sounded like a famous studio
Mm,
or
yeah,
maybe even a band. Even as a band name, it's pretty good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Artesian Grove.
Yeah.
I don't know. And the latest album is All I Have to Say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it
And then
sounds like you're like the like you don't have much hesitation in like
no, go go go
writing,
go go.
recording, and like well, you said you had a lull, but then that that concert inspired you to keep going. So
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, and I hope this year to have one more EP with some ballads. Should be a sort of companion album to All I Have to Say, which is called Shades of Blue. And then I hope to have an with something for now I call it unplugged with what I talked about, just very simple, stripped down. So it's either going to be called unplugged or stripped down.
okay.
That should be out also both in 2025, if I have time of life.
Mm-mm-mm. So it sounds like you are in a quite a comfortable process really when it comes to writing, recording, releasing. What I'm interested in is kind of the practicalities of how you write a song. How does it happen? You're sitting at the piano or you're walking down the street, like what happens?
Yeah, there are roughly roughly two ideas, two ways of working. Either I start um, from the music, and that will usually be improvising on piano or guitar, or sometimes I wake up and suddenly have a rhythm that I need to drum or a bass line that I need to try or something. But usually it's just I take an instrument and I start jamming and something happens. And then once I have some chords that I like or a melody that I like, I start trying to make something of a melody to the chords, the chords to the melody. I record it, and then I start thinking, okay, what kind of words would go with this particular melody?
So,
And
sorry,
it
when it comes to the chords, um, do you so because you studied piano and violin, so your knowledge of theory must be pretty decent. Are you able to um like in the first go like create the whole all the chords for the whole song? Does that
no,
change later on?
usually changes. Yeah, so I try to work in sections of about 16 bars. So usually what I do is I will play some stuff and it will have some chords and it will also have a rhythm and it will also have half a melody or a t t t or t t t. And then what I often will do is I repeat it a second time, but turn it around. I change something. So if the first one is ta ta ta, then the second one it will go ta ta ta, some kind of inversion or change or whatever. And that's usually how I build a first building block. Um, and sometimes I hate it, sometimes I like it. If I'm able to hum it the next day, then it's probably a good one and it deserves a bit more. But I try to not have too many expectations. But I do try to record everything that I do. As soon as I have even half an idea, I turn on Ableton and I start recording it. And that shouldn't take that long, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you and I know it still takes much longer than you think because to record 30 seconds of music usually takes you 2 hours. But
Mm-hmm.
in my brain, I know how that works.
Yeah.
And to go from 30 seconds or from an idea to having 30 seconds of music in my brain is not a big step.
Yeah.
Maybe you also want to know I do this. I have a Roland keyboard. I have a nice guitar, and those are all plugged in more or less permanently into a Scarlett interface,
Yeah.
and the Scarlett interface into Ableton. So all of this is more or less a permanent setup. So whenever I have an idea, I can just sit down,
Yeah.
maybe plug in one thing, click here and there, and then I can start.
Yeah.
Um, so then I will have a snippet, and I will save the snippet. I will usually even I will generate it, and occasionally I go back to the snippets, especially when sometimes you're very depressed and you think, okay, I never do anything that's worth listening to. And then I
Mm.
go through the snippets and I think, oh, that one wasn't bad. Okay. And okay, that one was terrible. But that one actually, it has something.
Yeah.
Um, so then after the first recording, I try to leave it alone. I try not to write a whole song in one day. That doesn't really work for me. And then again, if I can still hum it the next day, then it is something.
Mm.
And then I will go back to it. And sometimes maybe I'll change it. I was working on something earlier today that yesterday I had a certain idea how to play it, and today I was trying to play it again. I messed it up, and that sounded much better. And then
Right.
I thought, oh, that's what it's supposed to be. Oh,
Right. Right.
okay, of
Right.
course. And then I'll try it again. So then to go from there, I will usually the thing that I like the most becomes the hook or the chorus
Yeah.
or whatever it is in the song because it has the most power. And then I start thinking, okay, if I'm here, what's next or what comes before it? So and usually there's some simple tricks to get me started. If something is in, I don't know, A minor, then maybe the bit before, the bit after will be in F sharp or F, or maybe it will be in F sharp and will be something weird. But
Mm.
I try to find some connected chords, some stuff that works with it. Um, and so then I get to a situation where I have usually a verse and a chorus, uh, maybe a pre-chorus. Um, I start thinking about how to link it, what kind of intro. Then I start thinking, does it need a bridge? And that also depends a bit on the lyrics.
Yeah.
So by then I will already have some lyrics because as soon as I have the melody for the hook, I think of some words that will fit it. And it at that moment it doesn't matter too much. It just needs to have some kind of name.
Yeah.
So if the ta 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 and the clouds went away, I don't know. It's not the most inspiring lyric yet, but
Mm.
it's part of it. And then I start thinking, okay, the clouds went away. What does it mean? Well, how did that happen? Is it maybe a new love? Is it maybe the end of my trouble? Is it
Yeah.
maybe I'm talking about somebody else who I don't know. And then I start imagining a story, and I like to make the story to have it at least two different perspectives. If somebody's in love, what is the other person thinking? Maybe they're not in love at all.
Mm.
If I miss you, what is the other person thinking? They're clearly not missing me,
Yeah.
or maybe they're also missing me. But um, and what I like to do is I like to make it uh, generic is the wrong word, but sufficiently neutral that whatever person you love it would still fit
Yeah.
because I try to think in some universal thoughts,
Yeah.
right? Um, which is just my way of working. I was talking to Ben, the Prince of Battenberg, who you also know, and I like that he does the exact opposite, right? He has this amazing song about two latte and a toasty, or I don't know exactly, but it's clearly about a barista, and it's a barista in Tottenham, and it would
Right.
only work there, and it only works because he is Ben, the Prince of Battenberg,
Yeah.
and it's extremely personal, and it's a really cool song, right?
Yeah.
But it's not my way of working. I try to always leave out things that make it too specific so everybody can say, "Oh yeah, I recognize that," and sometimes that works really well. I always get some reactions to the song "Never Want to See You Again" because there are universal feelings. Everybody has had that moment when
Yeah.
I never want to see you again.
Do you have any sense of how the effort is distributed across the whole process from start to finish? And I'll explain what I mean by that. So for me personally, the initial idea like going from zero to having some kind of idea is does not happen that often for me. That doesn't mean that I'm not trying, that I'm not noodling about, trying new chord progressions. But to get from zero to point one, that is a lot of messing around, a lot of effort, and it's not even just effort of consciously sitting there. It's everything that I'm doing, like listening to different music, going to gigs. I all consider that part of it because I'm just feeding my brain constantly with all kinds of stuff. So 0 to 0.1 is a lot of time and effort. Then the from zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.3 or zero point 0.4 can happen quite quickly. So that I would, for me, that's what you described in like having, okay, I've got a verse, I've got an idea for a chorus, I've got some kind of melody with some placeholder words. That to me is like from zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.3, zero point 0.4. And then that can happen quite quickly. But then from there to like, okay, do I want a key change here? Do I want a bridge? What do I actually want to sing? That is where the real work happens. How is it for you? Is that in any way the same for you, or
Well,
is it
it's
more
really funny that
equal across the whole spectrum?
it's really funny that when you were talking about zero point 0.1, I was actually thinking about I could sit down every day and write some idea. You remember some time ago we did some songwriting exercise together, and there's always some idea in my head that I can play.
Yeah.
However, uh, I will always try to be honest enough to say, that was fun, but not great, right?
Hmm.
So fine, I will leave it alone. So I usually consider that my point one, but listening to you, that you already consider the point three or point four, right? But
I'll just stop you there because I was having a discussion with uh, my friend Farhan. We actually did an interview as well, and I don't know if we discussed that during the interview or if we talked about this outside because the way that I talk about my songwriting process, I, it can. I think it can be perceived as me saying, "Oh, I only have good ideas and I only write the singles," you know what I mean?
yeah,
But I don't think that's the case. I just think that there's probably a different I use different words for describing what I even consider an idea. So
right,
I probably have the same amount of noodling ideas as everybody else. I'm not special.
yeah,
It's just that for some reason the word that I use to describe what is an idea and what is not an idea. And
yeah.
I think that's the difference I was talking to my friend and he was asking me about my process and you just picked up on as well. I don't think that I'm any different from anybody else in that
Yeah,
regard. And that's what you just picked up. Like what I consider point one and you consider point one just happens to be different, and point three and point
yeah.
four. But we're probably doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's probably similar. I I was just reminded of this documentary of I forgot the name of this Danish band which has an amazing hit. And they followed the Once I was 7 years old. You know the song, I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They were following them throughout, also part of the songwriting process. And you know, the band had some ideas. We can do this, and here's some. And I thought, okay, yeah, that sounds nice. That sounds nice. And the lead vocalist and the leader of the band, they were like, no, this is all bullshit, and no, this is terrible. No, 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 we have to have something completely different. And then one day later, he came back with that song, right?
Right,
Which,
right, right.
so I uh, I suppose everybody has, and this is also something that John Cleese describes in his book about creativity. You can have many shit ideas, and that's fine. And you need to give yourself the freedom to have all these shit ideas. And then suddenly you go, wait, that was something. Wait,
Mm,
I like that. So
mm,
yeah. So usually I start from the music, but I also sometimes I will have something to say. I will write the lyrics first. Um, because there's something that really touched me. So, it, or yeah, it's usually something like that, something that really touched me. And then
yeah.
I don't think too much about the music yet. I just try to write the story and the lyrics, and maybe it's more like a poem. And then when I get to the song, I sit down at again with piano or guitar, and I start playing some chords to it and make a melody. And then usually I change the words because they don't fit in my
Mm,
mind. They had a great fit, but once I start playing, I don't know, I have to fit this a bit. I don't do what I know that you do, and you're really good at that. You really you sculpt the words into the final product.
mm.
I I don't do that usually with the words. I maybe make some small changes where I will change half a sentence, but usually what I do at first, that sort of that will probably be it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was alluding to, where the sense that I have for myself is what what we said earlier about that finishing the last 20% actually is where most of my effort goes.
Yeah,
And I find that that's where the real work begins for me.
yeah.
But maybe it sounds to me like for you, the effort is more distributed evenly across.
No, no, no. What you say is exactly correct.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I just I often forget to do the last bit.
Yeah.
I will stop at 80% and think, that's 80%. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I will let it simmer, and maybe I will change it later, and maybe not, and on to the next one.
Yeah. It's one of those things where there's there's no right or wrong way of doing it. And some people will say, and I'm not even talking about, yeah, in one way you could say you could reduce it to simply say, oh, one person is saying good enough is good enough, and the other person is saying is more of a perfectionist. But I think that's too simplistic, and I think there's too much room for individual tastes to put it down to that. Um,
Yes,
and
but I will try to say why I think my method is wrong, or not. It's it doesn't give the best results. I really respect people who have a very strong vision in what they feel they need to do and where they need to go and what they can do and can't do and shouldn't do. The the way my girlfriend makes her ceramics, she has a very strong vision. Whenever I give her some idea, you could do this, you could do the other thing. 90% of the time, she will go, no. Just it's already decided. It's she doesn't have to think about it because she knows where she wants to be, and maybe where she wants to be today is different than where she wants to be next year, and that's fine. But at any point in time, she has a very strong vision. This is
Mm,
what fits and that doesn't fit. I don't have that. And I, right now, I sort of believe that the best artist in whatever walk of life, writing books or paintings or making music, if you have a very strong vision of what you need to do, what you want to be, I think that really helps your product, your
mm.
art.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I probably lean more in that direction. The danger is, which is what I was always afraid of, which is that is it a protection mechanism to stop you from actually putting things out? And I in the
But you
begin
have 30 songs out, right?
20.
You have 30 songs
Yeah,
out. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, I in the beginning I did bite the bullet and was like, right, I'm gonna put stuff out that is I'll just, because I wanted to go through that process. And initially I did self home recording, and then, but like I said, then I quietly removed some of that stuff. So there's nothing wrong with that, like going through that process. But yeah, yeah, it's you have to be careful with if you have that way of if you tell yourself that right, I've got a clear vision, but after a year you haven't done anything, then you have to stop and say, well, okay, maybe I should leave, go for good enough for now,
yeah,
because otherwise, uh, yeah, that it's not a good place because you're not iterating, you're not learning, all that kind of stuff. But it is, yeah, it is, because somebody like Ed Sheeran, from what I've heard from him, he's much more in let's write lots of songs and then pick the 10 best and work on those. And I thought that most were like that. But then I heard an interview with one of the guys from ABBA, and he seemed to be more the opposite direction, where he was um, they would have an idea and they would really work on it and sculpt it from 10 different angles and change things and rewrite it, etc., until they were happy with it. So it sounds like there's different ways of doing it, and people can change. And to be honest, I would like to um, go down the road of higher volume. Not necessarily I would release higher volume music, but to write higher volume. I would like to do that at some point and give
okay, but
myself permission
you,
to
you
do
have
that.
to you have to place a bet now. 100 years from now. And I love Ed Sheeran, right? I love his attitude. I love his personality. I sort of like his music. Uh, who will? And I'm not the biggest ABBA fan, but 100 years from now, which music will be still remembered?
Well, I think ABBA. I think,
100%.
yeah.
100%.
Well, yeah, I do have my
Yeah.
personal taste and thoughts about that, about the high volume approach. And there's a time and place for it, and I think there's a time and place for it, but I'm wary of the people that only do that because the results I'm not too impressed by. So, so yeah.
Yeah. Even bands like the Rolling Stones, who they've had both, right? They've had periods where they were just writing as many songs as they could, and they also had some periods where it was really focused and they really wanted to make something special. And I think that Exile on Main Street is absolutely it's a monument.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also albums, and I'm pretty much a Stones fan, but there's albums where, yeah, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
okay. It's
yeah,
better than
yeah,
what I would do. But Exile on Main Street will be remembered 50 or 100 years from now,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
guaranteed. Anyway, my idea. So I do it the way I do it because I've also accepted that warts and all, it is a process that works. It's a process that gives me a lot of joy because in the end, that's the only reason that I should be making music, not to put stuff on Spotify. I put stuff on Spotify to have sort of an endpoint,
Yeah.
to give it a conclusion, to say, okay, it's done.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it more. I can still play it live. I can still change it. I might still record it differently
Yeah.
2 years from now. That's fine, but it's sort of an endpoint. But the creation, like Rick Rubin says, to lose yourself in that creative space, to do things that didn't exist until 5 minutes ago, but now you're doing it. That's the most joy of it. And
Mm.
I I've spent quite a bit of time on social media, especially on Threads, trying to plug my album, and it has effect because I went from 3 streams per month to 40 streams per month, so it's
Okay.
working. But I'm still not at 200 million streams, so whatever. I should take it easy, go back to writing songs, which is the bit that I really like.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I always think that with anything like the the first the first couple of people, the first couple of fans, whatever you want to call it, is the hardest in that. And like you said, it is important to like enjoy the process and do it. If you don't enjoy that, then it's pointless. Uh, but if you're talking about promotion, then the fact that people are listening is like that's the I don't know. I think that's probably the hardest, and then obviously I'm not mega successful, so people will there will be people out there that say no, actually it gets harder. Somebody said that the other day. It was really weird because I was talking on a Reddit. I replied to somebody, and I said that I said, look, for me it's like, well, in the beginning I didn't know if anybody would listen to what I'm doing, so the fact that then like 5 people, 10 people, 20 people. I thought, oh, that's
200.
that's great. It gives me like motivation. But then
Yeah,
somebody in the comments said, what did he say he was? I'm a musician and I'm an economist. And he said, oh, it actually gets harder because, and he gave some, it didn't sound, sure you're an economist, but it didn't sound like it didn't pass my, okay, I understand there's a difference between in human intuition and actual mathematics and network theory and all that kind of stuff. I
exactly.
100% appreciate there's a difference. Like human intuition heuristics can be wrong all the time. But basically, he was saying, oh yeah, it's easy uh, to communicate within your close network, but then that quickly gets saturated and it's harder
Hmm.
to reach out. But well, um, I come at it like, okay, that's an economic spin, but then but I think about it like a virus spreading, and it's like, well, I mean that's a whole other thing to
Yeah, but
talk
even
about.
the
But
way
anyway,
that we promote our music or that we play live, your network constantly expands, right? Because by doing these open mics and do these longer gigs, you meet new people and people who say, "Oh, that's pretty nice what
yeah,
you're doing, nice,"
yeah, and
and they
there's
will.
there's there's a social proof aspect to it, and the more people that are exposed, the more other people will will see the expo hear/see the expo. And so, for example, if somebody's um, the way that he described it, it sounded like, okay, if you're trying to sell Nike shoes to people, then you're very quickly gonna or or what is it, these network marketing, you're trying to
Yeah,
sell
yeah.
Tupperware, then very quickly you're gonna run out of people to sell to. But I think with it kind of misses out the human, and I don't mean it in a woo-woo point of view. I mean it is that it's not when people see other people wearing these particular shoes, then there's a higher chance that they will then check out those shoes because they think, okay, well, everybody's wearing these shoes or everyone's using this Tupperware. Let me check it out as well. So it's not just um, whether somebody has bought or not bought, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I also like the implication that because these network marketers are extremely annoying often. I mean, Tupperware sort of everybody needs some boxes to store or whatever, but
Yeah.
not everybody needs the diet pills and the water filters and whatever these network marketing guys do.
Yeah.
So I've lost some friends that they try to push their network marketing, and I'm not going to buy your stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
please don't push it to me again. And they said, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. And you could lose some of your close friends if you try to push your music that they don't appreciate. I, that happens, and that's sort of fine. But we have our own channels. We have our social media. We have our gigs, the gigs especially, where you meet like-minded people that are more predisposed to actually have some interest in what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Yeah. So like I said, I like because I'm really interested in that side of things in I'm interested in economics and political economy anyway. And like I said, I'm well aware that there's a difference between the human heuristic that thinks, oh, this is the way things are, but then the actual economics and maths is different. I'm well aware of that. But it
economics is
seems,
not an exact science. It's
well, I
the
mean,
weakest of the sciences
well,
anyway.
yes,
So
yeah. What
whatever.
I'm struggling, but there's some quotes that half remember about whether economics is a science at all. It's the dismal science, I think.
It's a dismal science.
Yeah,
I studied a bit of astronomy, so I totally look down on
yeah,
economics. Um, even even what's his name, Gary Stevenson, who is an economist, looks down on economics, and he says economics always reduces everybody to one person. We wanted to say something about the UK, so we reduce it to the average Brit, and we
yeah,
make some decisions about him. But we forget that there is a growing inequality between the top level and the bottom level. So
yeah.
anyway,
So like
economist said it. Whatever.
yeah, I took it with a big grain of salt. And anyway, the point was really is like, look, there's an audience out there for everybody, I think. No matter how obscure. I mean, I think if you like it, then there's going to be somebody else out there for sure.
Well,
And
I that's something that is absolutely true and that is liberating. That's something that is important to small artists like you and me, and you're a bigger artist than me, but people who start that there is absolutely a market for indie music. There is absolutely a large group of people who want to hear stuff that's not perfect, and it it probably shouldn't be imperfect to the point where you can't hear anything. But punk also got, it got popular for a reason. It appeals to people, and it's not fully finished, and that's fine,
yeah,
and that works. And there is really an indie market. And does that mean that you're immediately the biggest artist? No, but it means that we shouldn't be ashamed of the things we do. We do them with the tools that we have, with
yeah,
the talent that we have. Sometimes we ask people to help with the engineering or the mastering or the recording or whatever we don't feel happy to do ourselves,
yeah,
and that's also great. And there are also people who have self-recorded albums, including Prince and Terence Trent D'Arby, two
yeah,
of my absolute heroes. That worked out pretty well. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's
So we spoke a bit about the songwriting, and in terms of the production, how has that changed or has it changed over time? So in the beginning you did it all yourself, and now, well, you spoke about because your latest album which came out, um that
so
was
step by step was with the help of a teacher, engineer, producer, who helped me to occasionally say, you need to get rid of these 4 bars, and why don't you have something more here, and what change the sound of that guitar. The current one is again completely self-produced, which I I sort of like. I also miss having these interactions, but I like being responsible all by myself.
Mm.
If I suddenly have a truckload of money, I hear the truck stopping in front of my building. No,
Right, right, right.
if I have a truckload of money, I would hire a producer and an engineer and
Yeah.
everything else. But right now, that's what it is, and I'm happy that as as a musician and as a producer and as a creator, I progress,
Mm.
and it will not be perfect, and that's fine.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
good. It's good.
Yeah, I think I like when I was first starting out, I had going back to what we were speaking earlier about is that I had this idea, which it's all planned out, right? I'm gonna start a band with some other people, and I'm not gonna sing. I'm just gonna play guitar and write the riffs, and then there's gonna be this great singer and bass player and blah blah blah. And then we're gonna write a lot of songs, and we're gonna gig a lot until we're really tight, and then we're gonna find a producer who's gonna record us, and it's gonna sound amazing, like our first EP. I was willing to settle for a beginner EP, right? Because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
how
yeah.
all about, but it's gonna sound amazing anyway. And I
Yep.
just had it all. I wasn't so I just about wasn't so arrogant to think, okay, and then we'll get signed. I thought I was realistic and that no, we're just gonna we'll just maybe get a small local following. But
Yeah,
even all those thoughts were even pie in the sky dreams
yeah,
until you actually start to try and doing it and you're like, oh, it's so difficult to find other people to work with
yeah,
and all of that. So um the I feel lucky like in what I'm achieving now and just to get to that point there were so many obstacles and things that, right, I'm going to have to do this thing myself. And oh, I'm going to have to do this thing myself as well. I'm
yep,
going to have to do
yep.
this myself as well. And I don't, how do you say it? Not in a,
It's not
I'm
arrogance.
not
It's very
arrogant and
realistic. It's
disappointed. It's just
yeah,
like, oh, well, if nothing, it's like, or you want to organize a party and nobody's organized a party. Well, I guess I'll have to go to the supermarket and buy the drinks.
yeah,
And
exactly.
just the way it is, and then
Exactly. And if you can do it with two people, then it's a better party. That's fine. But
yeah,
until that time, I'm super happy that if I have some idea, I also have a drummer who can drum it.
yeah,
Not perfectly, but okay, DAWs
yeah.
can fix these
But
kind of things.
when you first started out, it might have been difficult to like get a drummer on board because there was literally nothing. You couldn't even
Yes,
show a
but when I was
demo or
16 and when I really had wanted to start a band, uh, I, I didn't have a drum set or a drummer.
yeah, yeah,
Now I still don't have a drummer, but at least I have a drum set
yeah, yeah,
and I have some drumsticks, and
yeah,
I can at least hit them.
yeah, yeah,
And if that means that I have to record it in 3 or 4 times, and that's fine. I don't care.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
know where I want to be.
yeah. Cool. Okay, so it sounds like you're in a good place now where you have almost a system in place where you can write, record. Sometimes you're giving it to other people to mix and master. Sometimes you are doing it yourself. So what's um what's going on with you right now? You've released a couple of albums and there was one recently, right?
Yeah. So the most recent one is this one. All I have to say. Also available as a CD. You have one. Um, I started that think about that album with, as I said, something like 2,000 songs. There were a couple that I thought were good but didn't fit the album, so I decided to make a companion EP, which should have 4 to 6 ballads. I I have a number that I really want to have there, but I will keep it open and see what happens the next weeks. This I would like to publish in June or so. And I'm working on an unplugged or stripped down EP, which should have again 4 to 6 songs. Ideally, I want to have them live recorded. there will be a couple gigs in the future where hopefully I'll have the chance to actually record it live.
Mm.
But in the meantime, I'm recording them semi-live in my little room that I'm now calling you from.
Yeah, yeah.
So those are the immediate plans for 2025. Um, um, yeah, who knows? More gigs, more songs. Maybe at some point, I will try to, take another break. Having a break isn't a bad thing,
Mm.
right? Um, I'm struggling to think of the name of I think Paul Guston, not Paul, but Guston, Philip Guston. I saw an exposition in the Tate where you saw that he first had a more realistic period, and then he didn't paint anything for 2 or 3 years,
Right.
and then he went into an abstract period, completely different.
Mm, mm, mm,
Then again had a hiatus of about 3 years, and then started making the cartoonist style that he's most well known for.
mm.
So he completely reinvented himself, and that can be very interesting, but that also takes time.
Yeah,
So sometimes not so bad to have a bit of a period with a bit less activity.
right.
But for now, I have loads of ideas, and I want to fulfill all these ideas and have the occasional gig and do loads of open mics because it's just fun.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, sounds like you're busy. Okay, Baudowan, that's the end of our conversation. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will leave links to all your music and social media below this video, so please, everybody, check it out. And if you're in London, then follow him on Instagram wherever you are. But if you are in the London area, then keep an eye on that because he's always playing open mics and gigs as well. And I think there's going to be an especially fun one in the summer, so keep an
Yeah,
eye
there's
out
going to be a
for that.
couple with also including you and other friends in the Yurt near Limehouse, which is going to be, yeah, it was great fun last year and going to be even better and hopefully a bit warmer this year.
Mm, great. Okay, thank you so much, and I'll speak to you guys next time. Bye.